Okay, so in the summer of 1866, this war breaks out, and it's over in just 7 weeks. Super short, right? But in that tiny window of time, it completely changed the futures of two nations, sending them down totally opposite paths. One was forged by sheer military power, and the other, well, the other was reborn from a devastating loss. Let's get into how one little war created two very, very different countries.
It's a weird thought, isn't it? I mean, we always think victory is what makes a nation great. But this story, it flips that idea right on its head. It asks this really fascinating question. Can losing everything on the battlefield actually force a country to win something way more important inside itself? It's a question we're going to keep coming back to.
So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it's not with these huge empires clashing, not at first anyway. It all starts with a really complicated, centuries-old fight over two little bits of land, Schleswig and Holstein, sandwiched right between Denmark and the German states. And when I say complicated, I mean it. This is a real headache. So picture this. The King of Denmark is in charge of both places. But Holstein was technically part of the German Confederation, while Schleswig was his own personal territory. To make it even weirder, a super old treaty said they had to stay undivided forever. For hundreds of years, everyone just kind of let it slide. But then the 1800s hit, and with both German and Danish pride swelling up, this messy setup basically became a ticking time bomb. That bomb finally went off in 1863. Denmark tried to pull Schleswig in for good, and that really provoked the German powers. So in 1864, the armies of Prussia and Austria teamed up and just crushed the Danes. It was a humiliating defeat for Denmark. They lost control of both territories. For the Danes, this was a national disaster. But for one guy in Prussia, this was just the first move in a much, much bigger game.
And this is where the story pivots. Enter Otto von Bismarck. He's Prussia's minister-president, and he's brilliant and absolutely ruthless. For him, those two little duchies, they weren't the real prize. No, they were the bait. He saw that having to jointly manage them with Austria was the perfect excuse to pick a fight, a war to decide once and for all who was going to be the boss of the German-speaking world.
You know, Bismarck's real genius was on full display way before a single shot was fired. He played this incredible game of diplomatic chess. He went to France's leader, Napoleon III, and kind of winked, hinting at some land for France to keep them out of it. Then he made a deal with the new Kingdom of Italy, promising them Venetia if they'd attack Austria from the south. And he made sure that Russia was on their side. By the time the war started, Austria was totally, completely alone. And it wasn't just diplomacy. Prussia's military was a modern machine. I mean, the difference is just night and day. Their soldiers had these new breech-loading rifles, so they could fire off multiple shots while lying down. Meanwhile, the poor Austrians are still standing up, trying to reload their old-fashioned muzzleloaders one slow shot at a time. The Prussians used trains to move troops like lightning and the telegraph to coordinate everything in real time. Austria's army, on the other hand, was a mess. Their soldiers spoke so many different languages they often couldn't even understand the orders. It was literally a fight between the future and the past. So, with Austria totally isolated and completely outgunned, when the war finally kicked off in June 1866, it was brutally quick. It was the war that would make everyone in Europe realize that Prussia was the new top dog. Just look at how fast this all went down. June 15th, it starts. Less than 3 weeks later, on July 3rd, you have the main event, the Battle of Königgrätz. The Austrians are completely wiped out. By the end of the month, they've agreed to a truce, and the whole thing is officially over by August 23rd. 7 weeks. That's it. That's all it took to flip the entire power structure of Central Europe on its head. For Prussia, the winner, the results of this lightning-fast victory were huge, and they were immediate. This wasn't just another win. This was the key that unlocked the dream of a united Germany. After the war, things moved fast. The peace treaty officially kicked Austria out of German business for good. Then, Prussia didn't just take the duchies. It basically swallowed a huge chunk of northern Germany. After that, it created the North German Confederation, a new country that it was completely in charge of. All the pieces were now in place for the final prize, a fully unified Germany. And sure enough, just 5 years later, after another quick war, this time with France, Bismarck's grand plan came true. In the famous Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, of all places, the German Empire was declared. A brand new superpower, built with blood and iron, had just arrived. What an incredible story, right? But wait a minute, what about Denmark?
The country whose loss back in 1864 started this whole thing. They were humiliated, made smaller. What happened to them? This is where our story takes this really fascinating, totally unexpected turn. A sociologist named Norbert Elias once asked this perfect question. When a country gets hit with a reality shock that shakes its very identity, what happens next? Do they plot revenge? Do they just fall apart? Well, Denmark did neither. They found a third way. Now, to really get what they did, you need to understand this idea of national habitus. It's a bit academic, but think of it like a nation's collective personality. Its gut instincts, its shared character. For Denmark, the trauma of 1864 completely rewired their national habitus. They stopped dreaming of being a big empire and instead turned inward for a long, hard look at themselves. And what's so amazing is what didn't happen. There was no big movement demanding a war of revenge to get their land back. And nationalism didn't stay some top-down thing that only the elites cared about. Instead, a whole new kind of pride grew from the bottom up, from regular people. The focus wasn't on the power of the state anymore. It was all about the strength of the people.
And this one phrase just nails their new philosophy. It became the unofficial motto for a whole generation. They knew they couldn't win back the land they lost on the battlefield, so they decided to win something else, a stronger, tighter, smarter society right there at home. And this wasn't just talk. They really did it. These people's high schools popped up all over the place, teaching adults about their own culture and history, building community, not just prepping them for exams. People started their own clubs, like sick clubs, for health insurance. The government's whole strategy was just to help people help themselves, with a little funding. The entire goal was to build this powerful sense of we feeling, strengthening the country from the ground up. So, there you have it. Two nations both shaped by the very same conflicts in the mid-1800s, but they walked away with completely opposite lessons about who they were and who they wanted to be. This slide just lays it out so clearly. You've got Germany, unified by blood and iron, a top-down nationalism all about military strength and power. And then you have Denmark, which responded to defeat with social self-reflection, a bottom-up nationalism all about social welfare and trust. Just two totally different ways to build a nation. And here's the real punchline. That we feeling, that social trust they built after their defeat, it became Denmark's secret weapon. Think about the 20th century, with its world wars and economic depressions. While other countries were tearing themselves apart, Denmark's deep sense of community gave them this incredible resilience. It helped them get through it all. So that leaves us with this one last big question. When a country faces a major crisis, what does it do? Does it look outside its borders for more power, for conquest? Or does it look inside, to build strength through unity and social trust? The stories of Germany and Denmark, born from the very same war, show us that the answer to that question can change everything.